but we're not equal in our knowledge. So ultimately, I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy, like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Today is February the 27th, 2020. I am the host, Nate Cap, and joining me over the airways is co-host Brandon Martin. Welcome to the first show of the CubbyWhole Podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. You can visit our website, CubbyWhole.com, CubbyWhole.com. We're going to talk about the upcoming S.E.E.D conference, and we will be giving an overview of the topics that will be discussed in future shows. And today we will be starting with the S.E.E.D conference. Then Brandon and I will be giving a short introduction to why we started this podcast and some of the topics that we'll be talking about in the future, and a brief description of the meaning behind CubbyWhole. Once we are through that, then we will be diving right into what we feel needs to be understood as a prerequisite to the rest of the show, which is the Trivium and the Quadrivium. So I think we'll only have time for the Trivium today. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and talk about the S.E.E.D conference, and I'll hand that off to Brandon.
Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to be a co-host on this brand new podcast that you've got together here, Nate. And as far as the S.E.E.D conference, the S.E.E.D stands for Studying, Educating, Enlightening, and Discerning. So it's an acronym. And it's pretty much a 2-day conference featuring a proactive approach to the task of spreading significant knowledge of consciousness, mind control, truth, things like spirituality, self-awareness. We're definitely going to be getting into the occult and esoteric knowledge banks and things like that. And we're going to be talking about sovereignty and anarchy. So there's pretty much no taboo topic at the S.E.E.D conference. We have top caliber speakers coming from all over the world. Some of those speakers include people like Nate, who is hosting this podcast. I will be speaking at the conference, and Douglas Martin will be speaking, a person that most people might be familiar with, and if you're not, you definitely should be familiar with, is Mark Passio. And then we also have Mark Devlin, and we also have Dylan McCormick. We'll have other speakers such as Mark Devlin, who's coming from the UK, and a lot of people might be familiar with his work. He has a book out, Musical Truth, I think is what it's called, and he has a really good podcast that he does. He's also a DJ artist, and so all these speakers will be talking about a vast amount of information. I know Nate will be speaking on the imagination, and maybe he can, give us a little bit of background of what he's going to be talking about. Oh, yeah, and there's one more speaker who's going to be there as well. His name's Tony Palmentera, and, he's going to be speaking on when it's in your best interest to actually break the law mathematically, and he's going to be speaking upon agorism and things like that. We also have Sean McCain, who's going to be speaking on the Kubrick movie Eyes Wide Shut and giving us the breakdown for different types of MK Ultra mind control and just different predictive programming that's placed into that movie. And I'm sure he has a lot of stuff that he's going to be bringing out. So we also have Nathan Reddit, who's going to be speaking upon and about entheogens, and hemp and things like that. But definitely going to be talking about human slavery must end before we can actually see any of these sustainable things work out in the wide scale. So Dylan McCormick will be speaking on the right of self-defense and its manifestations in the Second Amendment. Douglas Martin will be speaking on the origins of secret societies. So he's going to be, his presentation will be a continuation of his earlier presentation from S.E.E.D 3. So if you're interested in seeing part 1, you need to go and check that out on YouTube. And I'll give all the links after I'm done explaining what everybody's going to be speaking on here. Mark Devlin will be speaking on No Heroes, I believe is what he said. Plus, he'll be doing a Truth DJ performance on Friday night, which will be very interesting to see. And there are 2 other possible speakers. We do have Indica Martin, who will be talking about her newest book about natural law. And her book is called Give to Nature, and Nature Will Give to You. And it's a children's book, so it's directed specifically at the youth and helping to educate our children into these hermetic principles and the principles of nature, so that we can live in harmony with nature and live without causing more suffering. And then we also have Ryan Swisher, who might be doing a poem or a musical performance, and that will be on Saturday as well. And then I will be speaking on, my presentation will be called Sight Beyond Illusion, and it will be specifically on critical thinking, epistemology, the mystery traditions, education, ignorance, many different things. Definitely slavery, obviously. We're going to be talking a lot about the current condition of slavery. I'm sure every person that's coming to this conference is going to be speaking upon the inequities and iniquities that are running amok in our society and all over the world. And if I didn't say this properly earlier, your presentation, Nate, is Reillumination of the Imagination. And I'm really excited to actually hear what you have to say about that, because the imagination is so critical and so important. And then Mark Passio will be speaking on anarchism. So his presentation is called Fake Ass Anarchist. And he's going to be giving a hard-hitting presentation that will be directed at the truth and anarchist community. And if for people who do know of his work, they all know that when he comes out roaring like an emerald lion. And for those who have been initiated into alchemy will understand that symbolic reference of the emerald lion. But for more information, you can find all the information at eventbrite.com, and that's eventbrite.com. And you go to the search bar and you search for Seed 4, but make sure you add the periods in between the letters. So S.E.E.E.D.4 and then growth. So that's the title of the subtitle of the conference, which is growth.
Sorry, and all that information can be found also at CubbyWhole.com, CubbyWhole.com. I just wanted to throw that in there just in case for anybody who wants to find all the information for the event. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's just fine. We do need to put that in there as well and let people know that, the CubbyWhole will be the main page that you'll be able to access all this information. So for those who are interested in buying tickets are $85, and all the money is going directly to supporting the travel expenses and lodging expenses of the speakers and the location fee. So this is not about making money at all. This is about spreading knowledge to help end human slavery and actually help end all slavery, even for the animal kingdom, because we all know how abusive we are towards the animal kingdom. So if you want to buy tickets, you can go to, like Nate said, you can go to the CubbyWhole and you'll find a link there to the Eventbrite page, or you can go directly to the Eventbrite page and you can buy tickets there. You can also buy them directly through me, through my PayPal. Now, to do that, you have to either go to the CubbyWhole to get that information or to go to the Eventbrite page. And there's one more website that you can find this on, which is skatopia.org. Now, skatopia.org also has all the pre-videos from the previous conferences of all the speakers who have attended. So for that, part 1 of The Origins of Secret Society by Douglas Martin, you can find that on there. But if you're interested, you can also just search YouTube for these things. And the main channel that I have them on is Occulted Knowledge. So you can just, search for my profile there, and there's a database there of all these presentations that we've given. Nate has given, one at each conference, and so have I, and so has Doug. And there's been different speakers who have come in and done an amazing job. Now, as far as lodging, There are hotel options, which is very crucial for anybody who's coming down. We always know that we need a good place to relax and, get good food and things like that. So the lodging will mainly be, for most people, probably the Fairfield Inn, which is a Marriott hotel. And you can find all this information, like we said, on the Eventbrite page. But the other one is Holiday Inn Express, and the other one mainly that I would recommend is the actual university which we will be speaking at. So the location of the conference is taking place at a college, on a college campus. So it's at the Ohio University, the Baker University, and there will be, the option to actually stay on campus. And for that, you need to contact me directly through my email address, which is provided on that website. Or there is also the other option of the Ohio University Inn, and that information is also on the web page. So besides that, there are also vendor table options available. I think I have 4 or 5 more spots left, and those cost $50 to actually, reserve that spot for, whatever you're trying to sell. There will also be other speakers that will be selling things there. Mark will be selling videos. Mark Devlin will be selling stuff like that. I'll have a lot of anarchy stuff there. So, we really look forward to using different types of decentralization and decentralized forms of currency as well. So we do take donations through cryptocurrency. And if you want to purchase the spot, like a vendor table with cryptocurrency, I'm all for that also. The event itself, which I don't think I said at the beginning, the event itself takes place May 29th to 31st.
Yeah, man. And for people who don't know what SEED means, can you break down what SEED 1, SEED 2, SEED 3, and SEED 4 mean, and where you came up with that idea for the conference?
Absolutely. So I personally was inspired by studying deep esoteric anthropology and getting into the sacred knowledge that was being correlated with the agricultural advancements during, the early primitive people. And I don't even like calling them primitive because they're not really primitive. So it's kind of a dishonor to even call them primitive. But, to these people, the seed was a means of storing knowledge, and it was a means of carrying that knowledge down to the next generation and for posterity. So it was looked at as a sacred process in nature, and it was one of the smallest things that could carry all of the knowledge that's necessary to create growth and create abundance within their culture and within society and within our world. So, I took that concept and I was thinking, the seed is kind of it's a database, it's like your hard drive, and it carries all the knowledge. So I was trying to correlate that to the conference, and we're trying to grow that seed and nourish that seed. So, each phase of the seed I have named and correlated to each phase of the conference. So we had seed 1, and then we had seed 2, which was germinate, to actually germinate the seed. And then we had seed 3, which was sprout, which was the sprout of that germination. So the outer shell of the seed cracked, and then the roots started to form. And then seed 4 is growth, which is the next process, the vegetative process. So if we do a seed 5, then, we'll be going into something like bloom. Maybe it will be called bloom or something like that. So it's about sharing that knowledge. It's also about nourishment, right? So it's about bringing in nourishment through what we need, which is information. And we do need clear, good, healthy information at this point in our evolutionary period of, the human race. So that's why I was naming the conference that, because I'm trying to share and bring people who want to share the nourishment that's necessary for the development of the mind, the soul, the spirit, the body, all these things, to bring forward a state of freedom in our society.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's a very, very powerful word, seed, and it's interesting because, I was just thinking of when I sent you that text the other day about reseed, That's it's a very interesting thing to think about because, obviously, life expands and then it dies, and then it's like a lung, it's like the principle of rhythm. Everything is rising and falling. And, when I heard myself say reseed, when I was thinking about the seed and how the seed expands, it's expansive. It's like that really cool meme that says, like, you think you don't have power, look what a mere seed can do. And then it's like a freaking seed, like splitting a giant boulder in half and a big tree grows out of it. But I was thinking about that word reseed, because the receding is about like a focal point, or like things going back. It's like fading backwards. It's how something goes back into itself. And so I just thought that was really interesting to think about, even though reseed is not spelled RESEED, it's still phonetically, to reseed, because it's, when you seed something, when you spread seeds, you're spreading something that has the potential to expand and grow. And so like reseed it goes back into that and, maybe potentially regrows again. So anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was really astounded when you pointed that out to me, and it blew my mind in a way, and it opened me up to that final phase of the process of, the seed, and how we end up planting the seed again, and how it, like you said, reseeds and goes back in. And, so after the fruit is developed, then we have the seed that we take from the fruit, and we take that and then we spread those seeds, and then it develops the growth of the vegetation, and then it develops the fruit again. And it's that whole cycle, the ebb and flow. It's all corresponded. So the other thing is we cannot force someone to hear a message that they're not ready to receive, but we must never underestimate the power of planting a seed in their mind. And that's what this is about. It's about the seed truth method. It's about planting seeds of truth within people's minds. And we should never really neglect on the potential that they might nourish that seed in the future and allow that to grow, because as long as it's planted there, it will be there for them to be able to use. And I see a lot of people today having the expectation of instant gratification or instant change after people have heard a message of truth. But sometimes that message has to be stewarded and nourished for it to actually grow, because we're facing so much types of programming within ourselves and within the world that it's not so easy as one might perceive it to be for people to actually nourish that seed. And it becomes their responsibility to actually nourish that seed once it's been planted. And if you don't nourish it, then it will eventually decay and rot away, and then you won't have that potential at a certain level. But yeah, we should never underestimate planting seeds of truth in people's minds. So a lot of people are like, why would you even start a conference? Why would you do that? And it's like, well, it's about the seed truth method. That's why it's called the seed, because we're sharing, we're studying, we're enlightening, we're educating, and we're using our ability to discern the information and filter through all the inaccuracies of all the propaganda that's been placed in our world and in our minds.
Well, very well said. Yeah, man, thanks for breaking that down. I think that's very important, and I think it definitely gives people the idea of where we really come from. And so I think that is a good start to help us understand CubbyWhole. So CubbyWhole is basically, if anybody's familiar with, a sacred space to, hide something sacred, something that means something. And, when you look at the word cubby, you think of, either a bear, a baby bear, a little bear, or you think of a club. It's about understanding that this word means more than just a sacred space, because it's about understanding the whole picture. That's why it's with a W. And the whole is about understanding the whole universe. It's about understanding that we're trying to understand all perspectives that help us align with truth. It's about getting to the truth. And so, the more that we align our perception to truth, the more the closer that we get to it. So the cubbyhole is a sacred place where important information is stored, especially here on this website and on this podcast, where we're going to reveal information that helps the student, the serious student, find their way into the cubbyhole to reveal the truth. And, the cubbyhole is one of the most, it's a very vast topic because there's so much stored in that word. And as long as we have this podcast going, that's what our intent is to do, is to unravel as many of the mysteries that help us understand the cubbyhole, understand that it's about knowing that there is higher knowledge out there or in there that is going to only serve us to evolve the species, to evolve ourselves, and to, get us essentially, like I said, closer to truth. And if you want to go ahead and add, Brandon. I know there's a lot more. I'm just thinking of so many.
Yeah. Well, when you came up with that name, the cubbyhole, I thought it was perfect for what we are trying to endeavor to do here, and it relates right back to the seed, because that cubbyhole is that seed that's holding all that sacred knowledge, and we're trying to share that with people. So. There's so much you can say about the cubbyhole itself. It's about a holistic approach of, grassroots solutions to help people to, deal with any of the obfuscation that they have to deal with on a daily basis, any types of manipulation, things like that. So we will be talking a lot about the dark aspects of consciousness and the positive aspects of consciousness. But we definitely need to know these dark aspects to be able to handle anything that's going on within us and within the world. So the cubbyhole is, I related it personally for me back to, I added an extra letter into the word cub, and the word cub could be looked at as club as well. And it's kind of a place, like when we were kids, we had a clubhouse, and in that clubhouse, that's where we had our secret meetings, and that's where we had, it's kind of a form of a secret society in a way, and we kind of naturally build these little secret societies when we're kids to share knowledge with people who we feel are qualified and who we have befriended in some way, to bring into the group, like-minded people, to share the knowledge that maybe the authoritarian adults wouldn't allow us to talk about. So it was a place that we could be safe and secure, so it became a sanctuary away from authority, so that we could actually, grow in our own ways and grow in a way that we weren't restricted upon. So I like adding that letter L into that as well. And L is symbolic of God in Hebrew. And we also have the plural, word for God, which is Elohim, and which means the wanderers. But, I always thought about the clubhouse. So it's almost like it's a correlated to that symbolically. And, I know that it's just kind of reaching a little bit by adding that extra letter in there, but I feel that it's still the same significant essence when you understand that. And then I'm sure that you can speak on this with me as well, which is, the cub is the bear. And if, you're looking at the symbol of the actual podcast, we have the dragon and the bear, the little bear. and the dragon is representing Draco in the northern circumpolar constellations, and then the little bear is representing Ursa Minor, and it was seen to be the highest of the high. The little bear, Polaris specifically, was seen to be the highest of the high, the northern pole star, and this was where the ancient people would store all of their sacred knowledge, because it would never fall below the horizon, and it's seen as an immortal thing. It's seen as the one great spirit, and it's seen as something that would always be there. So that was one of the places that they wanted to make a repository to actually store the sacred knowledge. If you had the keys to unlock that knowledge from that spot, that hidden area, And there's a lot to the CubbyWhole. I'm sure we're going to be getting into a lot more about those sacred, types of knowledge, specifically with the mystery traditions. And we're going to be talking about the three ancient cults, the stellar, the lunar, and the solar, and the people who preserved their knowledge into the northern circumpolar constellation were the stellar people. And so we're trying to relate this back to the most ancient knowledge that is known to man. I feel it's the most occulted knowledge. A lot of people might be familiar with the solar and the lunar cults, but I don't really hear a lot of people talk about the stellar. And there's not enough out there about the stellar people. So we're going to be talking about anthropology. I call it esoteric or occult anthropology. And we're going to be talking about these ancient, how sophisticated they were, and how they were preserving the knowledge for the evolution of the species by keeping this knowledge in a sacred place, so that the future generations could actually have access to it, no matter how far we, went through time. So how, it doesn't matter how many years have passed, that knowledge will always be there. The essence of it will always be there, if you're capable of discerning that knowledge and bringing it out and opening that locked box, Yeah,
man. Very well said. And, to add to the clubhouse, I don't think that you're very far off, because usually when you think of clubhouse, you also think of tree house. And the cub, when you think of a cub is, the only age of a bear that can climb a tree, because, obviously when they get older, they get too heavy and they can't climb trees anymore. But the little bear can climb a tree. And so when you think of a tree house or a clubhouse, you think of the tree, and you think of the club, and you think of a sacred place to have your little secret meetings, or a place that you store secret things. And when you understand the tree of knowledge, and you understand the importance of Ursa Minor, or the little bear, you understand that the little bear is at the top of the tree. When you think about understanding the whole is 360 degrees. So 300, like if you turn your head 360 degrees, or turn your mind 360 degrees, then you're making a circle. And then if you think of a dot in the middle of that circle, that's a two-dimensional symbol. It's actually called the circle dot, or the dot within a circle. And if you understand that symbol, that usually, most people know that symbol to be a solar symbol or a symbol of alchemy. But when you really understand that symbol, not just at a two-dimensional view or way, understand it at a three-dimensional way, where you pull the dot up and now you have a cone. So understanding that the circle represents 360 degrees, it's about understanding the arc. It's about understanding that when we can see or envision 360 degrees and then look up to a point, to a reference point, and then you think of being inside of a cone, that also looks like a tree, especially like a Christmas tree. And then you think about all the stars and the planets as the lights on the Christmas tree. And then that goes all the way up to the star, the Polaris star. And that is exactly where the tail begins of the little bear. We're going to definitely get into that a lot deeper, but I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that's one of the most amazing things to understand, and how that correlates to consciousness at a very high level, it's a very deep level, because it's about understanding that the stellar people were preserving that type of higher learning, that higher education into the constellation. And of course, when you think of Draco the Dragon is, I look at Draco the Dragon as not only the protector of the little bear, but also what you have to fight through. You have to go through the darkest of the dark of this, the shadow. You have to do the shadow work. You have to go through the dark. And I look at the dragon as going through the dark to get to the light, to get to the bear, to get to the 7, because the bear is the 7. So anyway, I don't want to go too far into that, but I just wanted to, give a little bit more to help us understand where we're coming from with the cubbyhole.
Absolutely, and very well said, Nate. I think another thing I just want to add to that is when you create that cone, we also get from that the magician's hat. And I feel that that's very significant, because not only is that hat metaphorically and metaphysically, we're wearing that all the time. Like, our consciousness is 360 degrees, and then we have the dot right in the middle of that. So, even though we can't see that, we do have this type of, magician's hat on all the time. And what happens when the magician pulls from the hat? He pulls out sacred things that seemingly are magic. And I'm not just talking about the low level, magician on the stage. I'm talking about like someone who is actually doing the higher work of raising consciousness, and they're pulling that knowledge out from that, seemingly place of nothingness, where it seems like nothing could actually be there. It seems like there could not be, in a metaphorical sense, like a rabbit in a hat. There's no way that rabbit could fit into that hat, right? But it pulls out that sacred knowledge from the void or the circle, and that circle is, going back to that seed. It's the seed shell, the shell of the seed, which keeps everything intact within itself. And then I really like what you said about Draco being the guardian, the guarder of that sacred knowledge, and also being the darkness that we have to face, and we could correlate that to our brain anatomy, where we have 3 levels of our brain: the reptilian complex, the mammalian complex, and then the neocortex, which is, what separates us from the animal kingdom. So the reptilian complex could be looked at as that dragon, and it's the lower base level, it's the lower self-desires. It's about survival. It's about, fight and flight. And we have to conquer that and come out of the reptilian base mindset into a more emotional place in our minds, and then into a higher, more intelligent place into our consciousness by reaching the neocortex and activating both sides of the hemispheres, the left and right hemisphere, the sacred masculine left brain, and then the sacred feminine right brain, and unifying them through the corpus callosum right in the middle, and activating our pineal gland, and actually enlightening ourselves to what's going on within us and what's going on within our world. So, I think that we will definitely be talking a lot about, on the show, a lot about the stellar people and the symbolism, and how important symbolism is, because symbolism is a universal language. It is the archetypal language that we must learn. And even though symbols may change or differ on an outer surface, like visible, like they might shift a little bit and change a little bit here and there in history, the essence of that symbol remains the same. There's an intrinsic value, and there's an intrinsic meaning underneath the symbol. And for the ancient people, one more thing to add to this is that they could store more knowledge within a simple symbol. So that circle and dot is a really great example. There's so much knowledge that you can pull out of that simple symbol. And, as we make things more complex, as we add more left brain depictions of this, and as we complexify everything, we need a whole book to actually, explain what, everything means. Whereas the ancient people could just look at that circle and dot and they would already have that book because they had correlative thinking. They had activated their higher level intelligence, and they had an intuitive capability to understand the meaning underneath that without needing an entire library to actually get that knowledge. So it is a library in itself. So the CubbyWhole to me is a great library. It's the universal library. It's almost connected to the Akashic records as well, if we want to get into that in the future. But I think, I think it's perfect for what we're trying to do here. As far as sharing knowledge. So one more thing I wanted to say on this is that when it comes to the Clubhouse, we're not saying we should be withholding that information in secret societies, though. At one point it obviously was necessary to have light lodges where they would, hold that knowledge and make sure that it wasn't being used irresponsibly. And also because they were at threat to be murdered, executed, or harmed in some way by the religious fervor of their time, the dogmatic religious ideas of their time. And the people that were following those dogmas would actually come in and, do harm to the people who were trying to share this knowledge. So there's light secret societies and there's dark secret societies. There's light forms of occultism and dark forms of occultism. And occult just simply means hidden knowledge. So in Latin, it comes from the word occultare, and, it just simply means hidden. And that's derived from the word oculus, which is eye. So it's hidden from the eye in a way, And since it's singular eye, it could be hidden from the spiritual eye, the pineal gland, which I found very significant as well. But so when I was talking about, and I'm sure you feel the same way, talking about the Clubhouse, we're not saying like this is a secret society. We're actually egalitarian with this. We're trying to get people to understand this stuff, but it is interesting, the correlation of the symbolism to the CubbyWhole and the cub and the club.
Definitely. Yeah, we're definitely going to be covering the occult in depth in future shows. And one thing that I wanted to add is, I like what you said about the rabbit being pulled out of the magician's hat, because obviously it's coming out of nothingness. And obviously we always know that the rabbit is associated with the spiritual path, like Alice in Wonderland, following the rabbit down the hole. And, you can associate that hole as the CubbyWhole, because the rabbit is trying to show the whole picture. It's about, following the rabbit to the place that's going to unlock the truth to you. It's about understanding that when you go on this hunt or this journey, you're going on this journey to find the truth and expose the dogmas within, and to find. It's about discerning and finding what you've been not told as the truth, what you've been lied to about, right? And so the CubbyWhole is definitely the rabbit hole, if you want to think about it like that. And so you, whoever you are, that has come to this podcast has gone down that rabbit hole, and it has led you to this CubbyWhole. And like Brandon said, we are definitely not any secret society. We just understand these principles, we understand these words, and we're here to introduce this very, very important information regarding everything that is holding us back. And I know that a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about here sounds really abstract, and I know a lot of people are not going to get it. But I assure you, if you open your mind and you open up to the possibility of understanding these sacred sciences, because that's what they are, then you are going to be in for one of the greatest treats of humanity that you could ever possibly know, because it's about helping us understand our origins. It's about helping us understand who we truly are. And the closer we get to that is the closer we get to truth, because that's what the truth is. And we're just doing our best to understand this knowledge. And one of the great things that we have come across and discovered about ourselves is, truth discovery, which means understanding the trivium. And that's, I'm glad that I'm bringing this up, because I think it's a great segue into what the trivium is, what it means, and how we use it. And I think Brandon even brought up a really good point about the brain, the reptilian brain, the limbic brain or mammalian brain, and then you have the neocortex. So the three combined is the triune brain, and we're definitely going to get into that. But first, I'd like to go ahead and introduce what the trivium is. I mean, obviously the trivium is a multitude of things, but more importantly, it's about understanding what it meant in the beginning, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that's the classical way of understanding the trivium. And obviously, the grammar is about assembling, basically just, it's the rules of language. And it's a way of understanding the language, so that way you can, it's about taking in the knowledge and being able to logically figure out and understand what the knowledge is, and what the grammar means, and how to apply it. And obviously, once you understand what it means, then you can apply it, and that would be the your rhetoric, how you put it out. So the input and the processing and the output. And Brandon, I believe, is very well versed in this, and so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to him. But the trivium is one of the greatest principles to understand or sciences, I should say, because it is a science. It's an ancient methodology, and it's something that has been applied to our language since the beginning of humanity, I believe. And it's something that is still very important to understand and use today. So go ahead, Brandon.
Yes, you stated the very basic overview of what the trivium is, and you stated it in a very good way. And the trivium is basically a methodology for how we take in information, process it, and then apply it into our own lives and into the real world. So the word trivium means three roads in Latin. And in the ancient times, as we advanced in our intellectual and intelligent capabilities, it was regarded as the basis for educating the free person. Now, it's very important to understand that it's about freedom, because it's about reclaiming your mind and reclaiming your ability to own your own thoughts, emotions, and actions, and to discern and filter through information to find the truth, the objective truth. So these disciplines enable a person to comprehend and analyze and formulate and to communicate any type of ideas. So it really gets into epistemology in a way. And epistemology means, the study of what knowledge is. So when we're trying to study the veracity and the justifications for whether we can come to know something, the trivium must be applied to understand that. And, hopefully we'll have an episode just about epistemology in the future and, just philosophy in general. I'm sure we will. But it was the basis for the 7 liberal arts. And we'll be talking about the other 4 liberal arts, which has to do with the quadrivium, which is the 4 roads or the 4 paths and that has to do with a more scientific approach to, Well, to advancing our consciousness. So the 4 can be related to the 4 elements in alchemy, and then the 5th element could be related to the triune aspect of the consciousness, which could be looked at as 1. The 3 is the 1, it's a completion. So the trivium could be that 5th element in a way. But yeah, it has to do with the 7 liberal arts, and I mean, we can look at it in a symbolic fashion too. We could look at it in a way that the grammar is the roots of a tree that's soaking in all the nourishment, all the knowledge, from a vast variety of topics, from a broad base of different, sources and things like that. And then the actual trunk of the tree is the growing in the understanding and asking different types of questions, asking questions about the why and the how. And then the rhetoric is what we put into the world, which is, applying and integrating what we have come to understand. And I mean, there's so much you can find out about the Trivium. I personally recommend going to triviumeducation.com, which is a great place to find all the information about the Trivium, and they definitely have like a little type of school there where they'll take you through. They'll give you study guides. They'll take you through everything that you need to know to learn how to use the Trivium in your own life. So like Nate pointed out earlier, the classical, version of the Trivium is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And then we can look at it in like an esoteric way, which is knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Wisdom being the applied action, the rhetoric. And then we can look at it in a more modern sense, which is input, processing, output. So you could take another symbolic approach to this, which is like a computer. You have your input devices, which are your keyboard and your mouse, and then your processor or your main tower or your device that you're using, the actual hardware that processes the data that you're putting into that system is the main thing that's going to allow you to have understanding and to have a clear result. And then as that's projected, it gets projected onto an output device, which would be your screen or your printer. So if the data that's put into the device is corrupted and is just not accurate, it's based in fallacies, it's based on lies, and then whatever you're programming that device with, what it's going to put out on the screen, unless it's doing a really good job of filtering out all those inaccuracies and lies and things like that, all that corruption and toxicity, then you're going to get very bad results on your screen. You're not going to have clear results. You're not going to have high definition coming out. So if you printed something out, it's not going to look quite as good. So that's a really basic way of understanding, how that works. A little bit more to this, just for the people who are more interested in some in-depth understanding of it, is that, the input, the grammar, like I said, it's about gathering the data from an eclectic array of sources without prejudging it. You just have to take it all in, put it on the table, and look at it and filter through it. So, this is answering the who, the what, the when, the where, the raw data and things like that. And then the second process is that processing, the logic, the understanding. And, this takes the ability of filtration and correlation, and you got to analyze. And with this one, I would recommend using the quadrivium to that, and we'll get to that in the next episode where we're going to explain what the quadrivium is. But once you do learn that, I would highly recommend applying the quadrivium into your processing. And this enables us to learn why, what is the reason or meaning or purpose, and also what is the causality, because the why is the most important when we're trying to get to anything. When we're trying to get to real solutions, we need to know the why. Why has this taken place? And then get to the other aspects of that, because why is the causality. And then when you put that out, it's rhetoric, it's wisdom. So this is about the speech or action based upon the knowledge that one has gathered and understands. And this is how knowledge and understanding are, propagated so that real and positive change can be created. As long as these processes fall into place and you're like doing this correctly, you're going to get good results in your life. And this is why they took it out of the educational curriculum because they didn't want people to understand how to use their own minds. So I believe there was a general who actually executed one of his soldiers for teaching the Trivium to the slaves in, I think it was Roman times that this happened. I can't quite recall exactly, but I know that it was very frowned upon and highly punished if you actually taught any slaves the Trivium methodology, because it would teach them how to think. It would teach them how to become free in their mind, and then they actually might stand up and rebel against their oppressors. And, we don't want that as oppressors, right? Nobody wants that, because we want to make sure that we have docile, people that won't stand up, that don't know how to think, that can be easily programmed, that are gullible and that are naive, So this also goes into teachability, right? So the Trivium has to do with, our education and how we're learning things, and to be open-minded and to have a healthy form of skepticism, but also not to become too rigidly skeptical or too open-minded, where we're just taking in anything and believing it all, to be gullible or to be very naive. And that's something I will be talking about at the S.E.E.D conference. But I think that's a pretty good basic overview of what the Trivium is and how to use it. And I would highly recommend for people to go to that website and do some of the studies, do some of the tests that they have on their website, and you will definitely see a very positive result when you're applying this into your own world and into our world, I should say, but into your own life, and actually, learning how to deal with the overload of information that we're dealing with today, especially with the widespread craziness of the internet and how much information we do have. So it's our responsibility to deal with all that stuff, and this is one way that we can learn how to deal with all that information, is by learning how to think, learning how to process, and then learning, what we should be putting into our world based on, what we want as results from that. And I believe that we all want pretty much kind of the same thing, at least most of us, not the corrupt elite or the people who are trying to actually control us and things like that. But for the most part, generally, people can say that they do want truth in their lives, that they do want love in their lives. They don't want war. Some people do, unfortunately, and I see a lot more people want that now than I've seen in a long time. But, like if I ask random people on the streets, my neighbors or something like that, they're going to tell me, obviously, they don't want war, So this is how we can help to get the firm basis or foundation of where we can springboard off of and actually create good results in our lives, because we can't do anything if we don't know how to learn. We can't, deal with any of the problems in our world if we don't actually know how to, take in information and put it out into the world. So go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, and also, just in case it wasn't said earlier, it's really important to understand the symbol that goes with this, which is the triangle, the equilateral triangle. And the equilateral triangle is what we use as the symbol to understand the Trivium. So if you can envision that triangle in your mind and you see three sides, that's the three-sided path. That's where all paths are united. And when you think of that triangle, you can literally put, grammar on one side, logic on the bottom, and then rhetoric on the right. So you can continue to do this. So so the classical Trivium, when you think of the triangle, is grammar, logic, rhetoric. And then the esoteric way of seeing that would be knowledge, so the knowledge that you take in, and then the processing, which is the understanding, and then the wisdom, the action, the speaking about what you understand. And then think about the obvious, input, processing, output. Or you can think about it as the, thought, emotion, and action. And I think, it's just really important to think about that symbol when you're thinking about these, because then you understand why that symbol is so powerful and so important. Also, you can think about it as the Holy Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost. And once you understand that, and I'm not trying to sound biblical or sound religious. It's just you once you understand these principles and you understand the science of the Trivium, then you can understand what biblical texts are actually trying to say instead of taking it literal. And that's something else we're going to really get into on here eventually. So I just wanted to add that to help us understand that the symbol is so important to recognize and understand that the trivium is the triangle. And then, of course, when we get into the quadrivium, that's the square. That's the 4. So very, very important information to understand before we go any further.
Yeah, that's very well said. And like we were talking about earlier, this does relate back to the 3 components of the brain as well, with the reptilian complex, and then the mammalian or limbic system, and then the neocortex. And, that triangle, like you were talking about, is very important. It's one of the most sacred symbols, and it's a very, very ancient symbol, and it means balance, because you have the 2 sides that are leaning against each other to create a strong structure and to create balance within the middle. So it's about the middle path. It's about getting on the right path and not being in either extremes of either the left-handed path or the right-handed path, or the chronic imbalance of the left brain or the chronic imbalance of the right brain. And this can also be symbolically associated with different mystery traditions, such as the 3 pillars in Freemasonry or the 3 paths of Kabbalah. And when we understand these things, which I'm sure we're going to break down in the future, it just unfolds a tapestry of great enlightenment to one's own self, and it helps you to understand who you are and how you work and what you can do with it. It also helps us understand causality and effect, so what the cause is and what the potential effect is, or what the effect actually is. But yeah, the 3 pillars of Freemasonry correlate back to the Trivium also. And I just, there's just so much to the Trivium. It's the most important thing that someone could learn right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to add a little bit more, I was actually, I heard myself use the word triviality, right? Or the trivia, something that's trivial. And I found out that trivia or trivial comes from trivium. However, when you think of trivial, you think of useless information, because that's what it is. Trivial things are useless information. So if you're taking in useless information, then you are processing useless information, and you're potentially putting out useless information. So that is something else to definitely keep in mind. So trash comes in, trash comes out. And when you look at the word trivium and you break it down etymologically, then you understand that there's the tree, the tri, the tree, TRI is the 3. So that's how you get the 3 in the threefold path. And then the vium is via, which is the way. It's the road or the path. And so breaking, something that we're going to be doing on this show constantly is breaking words down. So you have to use the trivium in order to be able to do that. You have, that's what you're doing. That's what we're doing. We are all trying to get closer to truth, and that means that we're going to have to do some deriving. We're going to derive or etymologically find what these words mean, so that way we can get closer and closer to understanding what words actually, where they come from, and how to use them, and what they phonetically sound like, And obviously, and we're not here to play games and reach. That's the other thing that I really want to get into is we're not just like throwing words out there to we're not taking a word and trying to find out what it sounds like just to sound like we found something. We're actually using the Trivium discovery method to understand what these words are saying, especially when it comes to words that are helping us figure out where we are and in consciousness, and how those words are affecting us subconsciously. And where did they come from? Are they Latin? Are they Greek? Are they Hebrew? Are they Sanskrit? Are they does it go further than the letters that we use? What are the letters that we use? What are what are they symbols, or are they just like something that's just made up? And so we're going to really get deep into this to help everyone get closer and closer to understanding that everything that we've ever been taught is twisted, and we're not being told the truth about things, so we have to discover it for ourselves. And that's what it's about. We're not on here trying to tell you how to think and how to be, but we are on here teaching how to think, if you want, teaching like a proper way of how to discover information and then come to an understanding and then be able to put it out on your own. And I think that's a very, very empowering thing. And if you have anything else to add, Brandon, go ahead. We're just about out of time.
No, I think that's a great start. I'm excited to help explain more of this in the future. And I hope that what we have stated here helps people to understand this methodology. And also, I just want to say, I really look forward to seeing a lot of like-minded people at the S.E.E.D conference. And, I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful conference. There's going to be a lot of great people there. There's going to be, great food that will be provided there. I mean, people should come to this conference because it's not easy to find people that are like-minded. And this is one place that we can actually come together and spend our spiritual currency, our actual time and attention with each other to help build bridges together and to help connect, and also to help support people who are doing this hard work, which is the one great work. And so I think that's a great place to really end off on with the Trivium. And if people are interested in more sources for the Trivium, like books and things like that, they are always welcome to send me an email, ciaprince@yahoo.com, and I totally will send information out to those people, to actually help people in their path and on their process. But one more thing, like you were saying, is that, we're not here to be gurus, and we're not here to be your priest or anything like that. We're just here trying to help share this knowledge because, people helped us with this process also. Like, we all need this help. There's nothing wrong with needing help, especially when we are so delinquent and deficient is the accurate term, more deficient in our minds than what we should be at this time in our evolutionary process. So, we're just here as signposts. You can voluntarily, engage in this. We're not trying to be coercive. You're not forced to do any of this. You can do it at your own leisure, at your own time pace. And we just hope that it helps you in your own life to help spread love and truth and freedom as far and wide as possible.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate everything that you have said, and I appreciate your time. And I also want to say this is all we have for today, guys. So thanks for listening, and we hope you found this show interesting and beneficial. And it's pretty damn exciting for our first show. So please check out CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com, where you can find more shows and news and all the information about the Seed 4 growth event coming up in May. Have a wonderful day.